Thank you. Take care out there. Entering this house, I am greeted by the old familiar smell of summers spent here during childhood. It must have been pleasant, as the faint odor does not elicit negatives, but rather a somewhat warm and pleasant undertone to the vintage-looking interior. Closing the door behind me, an old lady appears a few meters away.
Lixie, there you are. It's been a while since you visited last.
Ecstatic in her voice and quickening her pace towards me with joy on her face, I catch myself softly smiling in return, although this seems more to be a reflex in the face of another smile. I am unsure if it is genuine, but my heart feels unmoved, so I must assume it is only a polite thing I am doing. And so it goes, an embrace that must have felt one-sided, and pleasantries exchanged that would come from an acquaintance rather than someone's beloved granddaughter. Now a gargoyle must have taken the place of that child you once knew, grandmother. And so, I am sorry for your loss. Going to the living room, my fragmented memories seem inundated with a missing sense of nostalgia. Certainly it always looked this way, and I could picture a small version of myself here, running alongside the lined beige tiles, hopping on the lines to avoid touching the ground. The coffee table in front of the sofa is still there. I remember drawing and coloring paper foods just to try to eat them after cutting the shapes with scissors. It must have been a funny sight back then. Looking around, the cupboards are still there. Old table, decorations, books. It's like this hasn't moved in decades. Yet in my eyes of now, what should be there is refracting instead a dissipating warmth of what used to be home. All there is today are shattered dreams, memories swallowing their tails, and someone stuck there, holding onto sharpened shards, bleeding from their palms, wincing by merely smiling at me. This hurting orator addresses me with appreciation and familiarity, and I listen, trying to understand her with genuine interest, despite the broken link, like river forking against the current of what once was. And after this is done, I know already, this will be another carpet stored away in a mossy cabinet. A few hours pass, and unceremonious goodbyes are given on both sides. The imposter that came here to make sure she didn't hallucinate family bonds steps outside, and a wistful realization slowly dawns on her aging precursor. A dead husband, and a memory now, until that too flickers out. I've been to the late man's funeral. I remember that November, the call to attend, the mourning, white flowers on the windowsill. And I remember refusing to take and give a red rose as his coffin was being lowered. A refusal only I made from all those that were given one. It wasn't for me to be here. It was for the rest of the family I was birthed into. That was my train of thought. I wondered then, why did it feel like being at the funeral of another stranger? After all, I was never really there. Folks' memories of me was that of a child with potential, and later, echoing tales of my odd choices and adventures across the withering continent. I don't quite get why families care to give so much of their love away. But as well, I'm afraid I don't quite get love at all. If honesty were to be the subtext of this day. This specific strand of love? Even less. Was I supposed to feel sad back then? I just looked across the gray sky, feet anchored on gravel that didn't want to let go, observing flesh in mourning. I remember a corpse in a casket too, but I didn't recognize who it was. Not my grandfather, I said out loud, matter-of-factly in the empty room before the burial took place. Still to this day, I can somewhat recall his face in my mind, but so much time has passed by now that I'm not sure anymore. And now, the old widow that lived a deeply human life of care and love for her own kin, the one that feels like mere acquaintance to me, I bid farewell to, wondering if I'll feel the same nothing towards her husk when I'll stand next to the family grave again, once time reaches out to swallow her too. And I wonder if my decaying flesh will be in that grave someday, if some beast would force bureaucracy on this corpse, if they would not respect the wishes of the living and their death right recorded as will, somewhere folded between numbered papers and folders, as these warm-blooded, desire-riddled, logical machines usually tend to do. The door behind the familiar-unfamiliar house closes, and I walk through the small gate without turning back, directly into the street that shouldn't feel so forlorn to me. A quick step into the car. I will not be staying anywhere tonight, except in this tin box for the long drive home, whatever that word really means. Rolling down the driver's window, the wind greets me back with a reminder that winter has taken nature to its yearly slumber, and it makes my head tilt in a way that gives notice of a request from this petrified land. Right across the street, a house I do not recognize, but with windows like eyes that ask me to knock on its vertical mouth. Exiting and locking my car, I skip across the calm asphalt street as if a car was waiting for me to cross. I go to satiate this new curiosity. A knock at the blurry glass door, a familiar faint smell, and an atmosphere morphing into a feeling of safety. Compelled to open the door, I do so, and enter without a word. From its insides, the door and one window shine a soft light through, illuminating indoors like the first morning sun rays filtered through a lush forest's canopy. An elderly man sits on a large, old, seemingly comfortable armchair. There is no other room here, and this one feels like it belongs elsewhere, whilst somehow not looking out of place. The walls on all sides, except the one I entered from, facing now my back, are covered with reminiscence in its raw form. Pendulums, clocks, and antiques dedicated to measure the passage of time. A lack of pictures and memorabilia, a lack of tales, a humble weight. Where the old man looks, there should be something. A TV, most likely, but there is nothing here except the wall. He seems to be staring intently at this effluvium, colored to mimic the color of today's sky, like that was the only thing he'd been looking at for the longest of times. His eyes bleed of a rare human sensibility and care, a nostalgic wistfulness tamed by however many nights have been spent immobile there. Hardly moving at all, his jaw contorts and opens. Words are spoken. I do not recall them already. However, I remember a request, a letter to be delivered to his wife. But where is it? I must have burned it when your will asked for your sons to get rid of your archived life. They handed down the burning to me, and I remember cremating your existence as the autumn wind carried its ashes, softest rain making smoldering papers hiss. Was that you crying? Still, the old man sitting in stillness of continuum across me. This scene feels as if this is the picture of my grandfather that I stored away. It brewed into something and completed just now, it seems. A blurred life, and the waiting for a day to pass, maybe for a new season to arrive, maybe for a letter from old friends, maybe for memories to cradle him to sleep at 2 a.m, Maybe simply another act of cowardliness to wait for death. Or maybe that old man is some kind of a future me, if it is simply running in the family. I notice an empty seat, specifically a wooden stool, color of a faded coral, and I allow myself to sit in a diagonal to the memory ghost, far enough from most things. The contrast of the corporeal organic against the wall of silent timepieces is almost unnoticeable. Small words are exchanged, although I do not recall what these were either, nor their meaning, nor their feeling. Abbreviations, short sentences, trimmed nonsense. Eventually, a little warmth, even if I do not understand why it was directed my way. The scene and setting invites reflection, and it comes as I hold on to this ephemerality. I have been doing things lately, not many real things, not many elsewise either, but I have been living, somewhat, carelessly, safe, cold, without affection. But the latter has been true for so long now that the few moments when emotion grips my soul are as rare as moments of clarity back when I was not looking for them. But maybe I still am not, really. Still, I have been existing, and for however many days on this planet I have left, I keep striving to accept the mundane without distractions to aggrandize what life is. Or maybe that is impossible. And maybe life, human life rather, is about the fulfillment of an unending need for perpetual motion. Perhaps I am as weak as anyone is, after all is said and done. Perhaps this path I've found myself on is as hopeless as the hope I cling on to keep marching. The cold of winter, its wind blowing through the branches, forces a look into the distance. The sky is as empty as it ever was, soft clouds smoldering across, the kindest of raindrops leaving a kiss under the eye, a breeze to make it dry out, all the while moving in and out of places that seemingly care only for ghosts on broken pavement. I blink, suddenly finding myself in my car, windows rolled up, head slumped over to the side, neck a little stiff. Mustn't have been long I've closed my eyes. Still in front of this closed old family house, I look to my side just to make sure. A dream indeed it surely was. The house that was there is as faceless and warmthless as any other near these forsaken, hallowed grounds. Hand sliding across my face in a feeble attempt to make sure that I am awake. I turn on the keys to start the engine, really rolling down the windows this time around. Here, in a steel machine, on the road again, rediscovering emptiness, dreaming in hazy circles.